Have you ever really stopped to think about what a photograph is? I mean, it feels so simple now, just a tap on your phone. But behind that single click is this incredible story of science, of art, and a dream that is literally thousands of years old. Today, we're going to trace that whole journey, all the way from the first flicker of an idea to images that are created by, well, almost pure thought. Let's get into it. It really all boils down to this one huge, very human question. How in the world did we figure out how to freeze time? How did we learn to grab a moment that's gone in a flash and make it last forever?
You know, the answer isn't just about some new gadget. It's a story that weaves together physics, chemistry, a ton of artistic vision, and this really persistent dream that goes way, way back to ancient times.
So long before anyone even imagined a camera, people were just fascinated with light. The very idea that you could capture an image from the real world and project it onto a surface, that was the first massive leap forward.
At its absolute core, photography is the art and science of creating durable images by recording light. And, that word durable, that's the key to this whole story. Making an image actually stick around. Well, that was the real challenge. The granddaddy of all cameras was the camera obscura, which is just Latin for dark chamber. And get this, as early as the 4th century BCE, thinkers like Aristotle noticed something cool. If you have a dark room with just a tiny hole in one wall, an upside-down image of the outside world appears on the wall opposite it. The dream was born right there, but the image, it was fleeting. It would just disappear.
So how did we go from a disappearing projection to an actual permanent picture? Well, this is where chemistry crashes the party, and things start to get really, really interesting.
8 hours. Just let that number sink in. That's the almost unbelievable amount of time it took for the world's very first permanent photograph to be created.
And the result of that incredibly long exposure is just wild. In 1826, a guy named Joseph Nicephore Niepce captured this, the view from the window at Le Gras. And because it took a full 8 hours, the sun literally moved all the way across the sky. That's why you can see sunlight hitting buildings on both the left and the right side of the image. It's the perfect snapshot of just how monumental and difficult this first step really was.
Okay, so we've gone from an 8-hour science experiment to an everyday thing. The next chapter in our story is all about speed, innovation, and making photography accessible to everyone. The whole thing was about to go mainstream.
And just look at how fast everything started to accelerate. I mean, it took centuries to get from the idea of a camera obscura to that first permanent image in 1826. But then, bam! Just a few decades later, in 1861, we get the first color photograph. And by 1888, the game is completely changed with the Kodak camera. The pace was becoming exponential. It was just taking off.
And this was the slogan that changed everything. George Eastman, the founder of Kodak, he didn't just invent a new camera. He invented a whole service. Suddenly, you didn't have to be a chemist or a scientist anymore. All you had to do was press a button. And that simple, brilliant idea put the power to freeze time into everybody's hands.
But film was really just one chapter. The next great revolution was just as profound, maybe even more so. The leap from the world of chemical film into the digital age of sensors and pixels.
And this digital leap, it immediately split the market in two. On one side, you had the big, powerful DSLR, the digital SLR, with its interchangeable lenses for pros and serious hobbyists who wanted the absolute best image quality.
And on the other side, you had this simple point-and-shoot, designed for one thing, pure convenience. So it all boiled down to this ultimate trade-off. Did you want total creative control, or did you want a camera you could just slip in your pocket?
So now that the technology was in everyone's hands, the focus started to shift from just taking pictures to actually making them. This is when photographers really began to develop a powerful artistic language to tell incredible stories with light.
Take someone like Dorothea Lange. She used her camera not just to document the Great Depression, but to give a human face to what was really an unimaginable crisis.
Lange's genius was her empathy. She wasn't just taking pictures of people, she was connecting with them, capturing the exhaustion and the dignity in their eyes. Her photographs, like the famous migrant mother, they weren't just images. They were pleas for help that shocked the nation and actually spurred government action. Now, from the human face, let's turn to the face of nature with Ansel Adams. This is the man who elevated landscape photography to the level of high art.
Adams was part artist, part scientist. His pictures of the American West are just famous for their breathtaking clarity and depth. And to get that look, he developed something called the zone system, a super technical, revolutionary technique that gave him total control over every single shade of black, white, and gray in a picture. He didn't just capture landscapes, he perfected them.
And finally, we have to talk about Henri Cartier-Bresson, the pioneer who basically taught the world how to capture life in motion.
His whole philosophy was the decisive moment. He saw photography as being like a hunter, patiently waiting for that one perfect fraction of a second where human action and perfect geometric shapes all line up. Before him, photojournalism could feel a little static, a little posed. He was the one who taught it how to dance.
And that brings us right up to today and to the next great disruption. After chemical film and digital sensors, we've arrived at a brand new frontier: artificial intelligence.
Now look closely at this image. It wasn't taken with a camera. It was generated entirely by an AI from a simple text prompt. The photographer's eye is kind of being replaced by a line of code, an algorithm that can create a complete professional-looking image from nothing more than a description. This changes everything.
Which leaves us with a final and pretty fascinating question. Remember, we started with the definition of photography as recording light. But if a camera isn't required anymore, and a perfect image can be generated from data and text, is it still photography? What does it even mean to freeze time in the age of AI? That's definitely something to think about.